Welcome, everybody, to the Synapse Philosophy Group. I am your host, Dr. Haig John, and we are talking about chiropractic on D.D. Palmer's 1910 book, The Chiropractor's Adjuster. We're on page 502. We haven't got the halfway mark yet. The final page here is 1,000. Oh, no, we're past halfway. 190, 990 something or another is it. So we're past the halfway mark. And so we've been doing this chunk at a time, and we're really getting some good chunky stuff in here. And I was just talking to my dear friend Alan Lichter down there, and he was talking about the day he was at Sherman. You want to tell us that story about Reggie Gold? Might as well start with the Reggie Gold story.
When we were talking about Reggie and his and how he led us to somewhat more mechanical aspect of chiropractic in an effort to promote chiropractic.
Well, you were talking about a jar of nuts.
Understandable.
That's what I was talking about.
But yeah. And he was talking about, that it's interesting who gets to be doing the talking. And he said he was doing this talk at Sherman, and it was in the technique lab, and we're all sitting on the benches, and he's sitting there talking up at the front as he did, and he was shaking a jar of nuts, mixed nuts, the whole time he's talking. He's shaking his jar, and it's making noise. And he gets to finally the end of the talk, and he says, "Just so you know, you're wondering why I'm shaking this jar and what's going on with these nuts, and I'm talking to here." He says, and I get to he says, "If you look at the jar, you'll see the biggest nuts rise to the top."
Well, thank goodness
So
we had
never
a lot of
doubt
nuts.
that being on the outside, you're just one of the bigger nuts, and we're the important people for chiropractic today.
So listen to Simon Senzon on the interviews. We talk about why that is important, because the other part of why it's important is why we read the spiritual writings of D.D. Palmer. And Simon Senzon wrote the spiritual writings of B.J. Palmer, which are extremely important. And that is on my Christmas list to myself, is getting that book. Actually, I don't have that one yet. But we're going to start. We're halfway down. No, halfway. We're the last paragraph, three paragraphs at the bottom. And that's where we're going to start. Okay, of page 502. In other words, the path of nerve is 2 feet long. To try to cut in on the wire at the center of the nerve does not influence the periphery. Someone has his wires crossed. Oh, excuse me.
The first part is a quote from somebody else.
Yeah. Remember, this is a chiropractor's adjuster. He hasn't been adjusting anybody in a while. Someone has his wires crossed. He has the 3 nervous systems on one line. He has a short circuit, a direct short circuit from the brain to terminal cell, and a reflex back to brain. This itself is sufficient to give the reader a shock. His central fails to keep in touch with the truth, with truth and veracity. He has lost sight of 2 stations, the cranial and the sympathetic. It is time for repairs. The chiropractor adjuster calls attention to the luxations, which disturb his equilibrium. It will aim to adjust and repair all luxations made by aberration brain cells and add resilience to his idea producer. So we wanted to end on that. That's his end of you can't disrupt by simply pinching a nerve, because the whole system is designed to function, right? When we're talking about sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, that's what he's mentioning. Am I correct? Or what would you guys believe out of this section? Why did he end that whole thing about innate right there? The special announcement's next, and I can't wait to read it because I've never read that part. I'm going to start. Special announcement, page 503. I am pleased to inform the general public, as well as our patrons, past and present, that after a year and a half of a year and a half sojourning in Southern California, where my father went for purpose of curing T.H. Stoney of Duluth, Minnesota, of insanity, which cure was accomplished by one chiropractic adjustment, that we now have the pleasure of his permanent presence in the same offices in which he discovered the new adjustment cure, which he is pleased to call chiropractic. Dr. Dee Palmer occupies the enviable position of being the president of Palmer School of Chiropractic. Today, we are pleased to state that he is the president as well organized chiropractic school. He is not only president of this school, but also has discoverer and developer of chiropractic science that he has unfathomed far beyond his expectations. He was born of humble parentage, reared in an atmosphere of independence and self-reliance, never fearing to think of or delve where others dare to tread. Within him, he combined the rare qualities of genius and hard work. Excuse me. So,
We keeping you up, Haig?
Dee, yes. No, I'm kidding. But Dee's talking about himself right here. Is he writing this
No, this
himself?
is not Dee talking.
No. Is
I think
this,
this is BJ talking.
you think?
He's talking about his father.
I think we're going to get there. Why don't you read the next part of there?
True, there were other men similarly gifted, but none possessed that particular quality that was needed to originate and develop such a radically new system as this. A similar equal may be cited when we refer to Edison, for as we well know, he has the peculiar qualities necessary to develop the science of electricity. I think we mentioned that last week. Becoming aware of the great importance of this new chiropractic science, his attention was turned to the problem of how best to teach students so that they too could come to the same quality of work of curing the sick that he was doing. Naturally, the only solution was genius, time, and hard work. Setting about his task with no thought but that of success, this school has, as a result of 18 years of labor, a superior knowledge of chiropractic and is thus taught in this school. It is true that no one can possess the same depth of thought of the new idea, a new discovery, or a new system of healing as the person who discovered and developed it. No one can possess the same peculiar ability to impart that knowledge of chiropractic, unadulterated, as the man who is able to evolve and unfold chiropractic from the depths of superstition. Dr. Dee Palmer has personal charge of the classes in anomalies, chiropractic osteopathy, chiropractic orthopedy, and principles of chiropractic. These branches are his special pride, his students getting the benefit of new ideas which are demonstrated by one or more osteological specimens. Then the practical result of that idea is demonstrated on the living body in the clinic. Those who know the value of getting their knowledge of chiropractic first-handed will appreciate what it means to study these branches under the founder and originator of the drugless system of healing. For instance, the study of anatomy is dry and uninteresting in the medical schools, but students of anatomy as taught in the Palmer School of Chiropractic are often heard to say, quote, "It is very fascinating. The more we study, the more interesting it becomes," unquote. Too much cannot be said in regard to the benefits to be derived by students who have access to the osteological studio. So much depends upon the fundamental principles being thoroughly demonstrated in this phase of the work that Dr. Palmer Sr. has full charge of this classroom and its magnificent collection. At the number and quality of those pieces, every visiting physician or student in anatomy is surprised. No student can fail to be interested in the study of anatomy when it is so definitely explained by the immense practical illustrative collection, B.J. Palmer, D.C. So that's actually B.J. giving full kudos to his dad. Yep. I can't hear you. You're muted. Haig, you're muted. You're still muted.
All right, go ahead, Barry.
There you go.
Good. There's a couple of things that stood out. System of healing, healing, cure the sick. And we were talking about Reggie Gold earlier. And these are things that he did not like and separated chiropractic from that. And I'm looking at this now, especially on this podcast, of D.D. Palmer in a whole new light, professionally and personally, than I ever had before. And you're talking about B.J. Palmer and D.D. Palmer saying these words and things. This is our founder, our originator, and then his son. And to me, that holds more impact than anybody else who passed on or is even current now. It's just, I noticed that, I recognize that. This brings this reading into today's environment.
Absolutely. You know, that's incredible. Thanks for bringing that up. It's absolutely, you know, it's amazing. And just feeling that from BJ Palmer is like, hey man, dad did it.
Froze again.
We are in healthcare. There are sick people out there, and they do get well when you follow the principles and allow universal intelligence. And I really like how he's talking about, you can't follow a guy who creates a new system of healing as thought as well as him. He really gave, that's big input from BJ to his dad about his knowledge and his touch. And for him to, relate him to Edison that's amazing. That's love.
I mean, it's really incredible, you know? Absolutely. Anybody else? Let's read the next section. Do you mind going through that, Alan?
Absolutely. No problem. All right. So we're on 504 now, middle of the page. Many a rich man is bringing up his son, makes what Aaron made, a golden calf. Interesting. Heat is the essential agent of life. It is a kinetic force. Animated creation is dependent upon it for its origin, development, and the invigorating influence by which functions continue our existence. It is created by a dynamic movement of atoms' molecular vibration. I think it's interesting that they were aware of that at that time.
I think they were seeing molecules at that point. Yeah.
And he's talking about atoms, molecular vibration. So yeah, I mean, that's early on for that stuff, I think.
I think so too. You're right.
The nervous system is intimately associated with the production, distribution, and regulation of animal heat. By this function, the body in health is kept at a uniform temperature. The heat of the body may be increased by electricity, poisons, and bone pressure on nerves. The mechanical action excites electricity, stimulates, increased by electricity. Let me go back to that sentence. Mechanical action excites, electricity stimulates, poisons increase or decrease molecular motion. Impingement increases heat, rigidity, and intensifies vibration. Normal nerve vibration is about 200 a minute. That of fever is often as high as 400. Extreme rapid vibration produces necrosis, softening of tissue. Excessive heat causes nerves to become enlarged, swollen, intense, rigid, and very sensitive to the touch. Neuralgia and rheumatism, in fact, every ache and pain, are because of an excess of heat, which expands the nerves and draws them tightly lengthwise. The transmission of impulses is dependent upon vibration. The activity of functions is increased or decreased in proportion to the ratio of molecular vibration. It's the end of that particular section.
Pretty powerful. He's talking about atoms and molecular vibration. It's the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he knows all these facts and figures to a detail.
It's interesting. I mean, they're aware that heat goes up and down in the body and that it's controlled by the nerve system. And, whether the mechanism is entirely accurate here or not, we may have found other things since then. But what he's aware of and talking about here is cutting edge for that time. Absolutely.
Let's keep going.
Okie doke. The next section, page 505, the cause of disease. The chiropractor on its first page, that's the chiropractor all in with caps on both words, so that's the text, I guess, he's talking about there. On its first page, defines the cause of disease as follows, quote, diseases are caused by a lack of current of innate mental impulse. This is produced by a constricting force placed around nerves through accidents, vertebral subluxations. These displacements are caused by a concussion of forces, the external meeting the resistance of the internal, induced by traumatism. The above is a sample of the 99% of chiropractic as developed at the PSC. If a lack of innate impulse is the cause of disease, then functioning would always be below normal in all ailments. The development of chiropractic has always maintained that disease is the result of too much or too little functional activity. He has always stated that, quote, disease is the condition caused by nerves being excited or depressed, deranging their functions, unquote. He finds that much of the larger share of diseases consists of functions performed in too great a degree. Instead of there being a lack of impulse, there's too much vital activity. We want to talk about any of that?
What do you want to talk about?
I think we're back to Dee talking here and saying, we always said it's too much or too little. BJ may be saying it impedes the information. It's always too little. It causes the problem. But we know, and now we know too much or too little. We now know is the fact.
Yep.
Dee was on it.
Oh yeah.
Mental impulse, in quotes. Mental pertains to the mind, and intellectual, the mental faculties. The intellectual functions do not run the vital functions. This first sentence should read, quote, diseases are caused by either an excessive or insufficient momentum of force of innate impulses. Vital functions are those essential to life. Animal functions belong to the encephalon. They are functions of the intellect, the mind. Mental impulses belong to the mind.
That's why, I mean, he does say why he even said this dozens of times, because the mental impulse is what BJ talks about. He talks about vital force. And I think what he's doing is building up our distinction of it. Okay, keep going.
Quote, this lack of current is produced by a constricting force placed around nerves through accidents, vertebral subluxations, unquote. Subluxated vertebrae displaced by two bones can only press against a nerve on two sides. In order to constrict a nerve an organ or orifice, it must have something pliable drawn around it. A sphincter muscle, for example, surrounds a natural opening. By its constricting force, not a pressure on one or two sides, it closes the passage. Two bones closing together do not surround and circle, draw tightly about, or cause a constricture. So he's disputing the idea that a misplaced bone presses on a nerve and constricts it, preventing information from being there. He says it's got to be something that surrounds it to make it totally constricted.
Yep.
Quote, displacements are caused by concussion, unquote. A concussion is the effect of two bodies striking against each other, the result of a collision. The consequence produced by a concussion is never a displacement, but a condition of agitation, a shake.
Alan's frozen.
He's frozen.
Okay. Well, what are we talking about here? He's talking about how do we pinch a nerve? How are we, subluxating? Is it constriction? Is it, which we know can't happen. You pinch it on two sides, it's not fully occluded. And I feel he's going to get to a point where we're really talking about, where he talks about nerve tension.
I'm back, sorry.
He's back.
Do you want me to start that paragraph again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Displacements are caused by a concussion. The concussion is the effect of two bodies striking against each other, the result of a collision. The consequences produced by a concussion is never a displacement, but a condition of agitation, a shaking, or a shock. What is that, you say? Vertebral subluxations are displaced by traumatism. Traumatology is the science of wounds. Traumatism is a condition due to a wound. Displacements of vertebrae are not caused by concussions or traumatism. Traumatism is the systemic condition following trauma. Displacements may be traumatic, caused by a wound or injury. The author of the above definition of the cause of disease either does not understand the fundamental principles of chiropractic or he is unable to express himself intelligently. Oof, smack. It is no wonder that intellectual students of the Palmer School of Chiropractic are kicking. Quote, this is not chiropractic you are giving us. I came here to learn chiropractic. I go home, unquote.
He has no problem calling out somebody and calling him an idiot. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's a smackdown right there.
That was a smackdown. I love that. That is so funny.
I wish they would have put the dates on the signatures and the letters here, because if DD was at another school, I could see why he's being so finicky here. I mean, this is his own son. Where did BJ learn chiropractic from? And BJ at the time, the chiropractor, this is it looks like a newspaper. It's a publication that's just really philosophical. And BJ at the time, 1906, 1910, was really heady with our philosophy and trying to get a grip on it. DD, obviously, we know that through the readings here, does have a grip on it, of course. And it's very interesting, the peculiarities and some of the little nitpicking things that he's saying about the constricture, because DD also said through or over the nervous system, right? Which is spiritual and universal. And here he is being very mechanistic. I just find it interesting. But I'm wondering what was going on at the time.
Well, we kind of talked about that in the podcast with Simon. And should I let some of the cats out of the bag? I mean, I might let a little bit. Maybe you got to listen to it. But you realize those first classes, a lot of those people that came in there, they were already very well-educated people very often, or they came from osteopathy. and
A lot of more medical doctors.
medical doctors, osteopaths, and they came to chiropractic, and then they went to teach at, osteopathic schools. And, when we get this mix up that chiropractic came from osteopathy, reality is a lot of osteopathy came from chiropractic, because the license you got, or the diploma, was that now you can teach. And so these guys went and taught at AT Still School at osteopathy. So they got a lot of the philosophy and influence from chiropractic directly from D.D. Palmer at the time. So all that timeline's really mixed up, but now we've laid it out and gotten, the timeline of the first students and where they went. And it was just absolutely amazing research Simon Senzon has been doing, and it's just absolutely incredible. And how important that is for us, because, our philosophy is precious and people want to use it. And, it's being spread out all over the place right now. And, creating our intellectual barriers, really, of who we are, and creating the brand of chiropractic and keeping it within chiropractic.
Well, like Ellen said, from the get-go, we've had MDs on our classes from day one. And then also, if this is written during this time, D.D. Palmer was with Alva Gregory, who was an MD. But he took his classes, became a DC, and then they had the Palmer Gregory School. So here's Alva Gregory, that is learning and teaching chiropractic, but he's a medical doctor. So of course, his thinking and teaching that way. Him and DD didn't last that long. He moved on, but he was able to still use the Palmer name, the Palmer Gregory School. And Albert Gregory was an MD and was teaching his own medical students and society and people to listen. This is a healing art here. You need to learn this and go about it. So right there, the Palmer Gregory School was producing mixers, spondylotherapists from the get-go. It's from our family. It's from the Palmers.
When
we have the
was
gift,
that?
but we also have that.
The spondylotherapists. Now, tell me a little bit more about that.
So spondylotherapy is just as similar as osteopathy as chiropractic. It's just an older name of a technique that was used and taught.
Okay. Anybody else? Alan's freezing up. Tonight, I've got to cut a little bit short. All right. We did a lot already and went through a lot of different things. And I really am, I'm excited, even though, pardon me, I've been yawning a little bit. It's been an incredible day for me. And I feel so blessed to be able to come on this podcast to finish it off. So, but we're going to pick up next week right in that same spot. Okay.
Okay.
Same bat time, same bat channel. And we have Dr. Robert Crystal bringing the newest doctor of chiropractic with him. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
On Saturday.
Saturday.
I'm going up Thursday, and I'm bringing my two friends, BJ and DD Palmer.
That's right. Yeah.
And so we're going to have fun. I talked to Dr. Barlow this morning. He hasn't been feeling well. There's this crazy virus that's going around. My children got it. Hope, Lord, please let me get through until Saturday. It doesn't hit me. And, so he might be around campus. He was going to be at another thing. So we're going to have a good group. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to learn a lot. I'm going to learn a lot. Hopefully I'll have plenty to share. And, we're going to pick it up because we're going to talk about some of the things that we even mentioned during that last chapter come up during our meeting, because what I just said about our podcast with Simon Senzon, because we've gone a more mechanistic route. We've forgotten the spiritual route. The spiritual route to me is very important. Okay. The mechanistic route was scramble and save it. And it makes sense. I get it. But the vitalistic, no one really is taught properly in that realm.
They have to work together.
You can't have one without the other in reality, right? Remember, we were with Pasquale and we were at, I'm pretty sure this was at Williams Lake. He taught, might have been my first Williams Lake when we went, and the first one he did there. And he said, he told me to tell the couple of the college presidents, so you can be mechanistic and vitalistic. They work together, just like Alan said, because it's you have to have the mechanical part. It's how we deliver it. We have mechanical systems that we live in, but we're working with the vitalistic. Barry, you got something?
Yeah, you know, that letter of BJ to DD, he said he found the chiropractic science. And we know from this podcast, the scientists in DD led to the discovery. Excuse me. And most people think it's philosophy, science, and art. But if you read the cover of this book, what word is first?
Science.
Exactly.
I'm not even looking at it. What comes second? What comes second?
Art.
Art and philosophy. So we're not going to do it in that order on Saturday. We're doing the science first, the philosophy, and the art. We're going to mix them all together. I'm going to be a mixer that weekend. But, you know, that's the way we do it in that flow. The science, the philosophy, and the art. And, you know, and that's what we're doing the flow of DD. Because we're going to talk about the science is important. And the art is important. The philosophy is important. You need a three-legged stool, you fall over, right? We don't want to live on a unipod or a bipod. We want to live on a tripod. But I appreciate you all. Okay. I've got to prepare. I've been in meditation getting ready for Saturday. And today was a big part of it for me. So I love and appreciate all of you.
Before we go, let me ask you all to please be thinking on Friday. My wife is having knee surgery, so please give her some send her some positive vibes to help her
What's
through
your
that.
wife's name, please?
Deborah.
Deborah. Okay. Well, I'll keep Deborah in my prayers, and I hope everyone does as well. Okay.
Just think about her, send her some love and light, and we'll be getting through it all. But
it is done.
Everything helps.
And your kitty cat in the back right there. She looks like she's very happy.
Thank you, guys. Love you all.
Good night, everybody.
Maybe she had to go and see it.